Hi, Primas. I'm Roxy.
And I'm Giselle.
And this is the For Las Primas podcast. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone. So today we're getting real about something that doesn't always have a name, but that so many of us are feeling right now, and that's the slump. The mental fog, the deep emotional exhaustion, that feeling of being disconnected from yourself and the world. It's not burnout exactly, it's something a little bit more quiet and sneakier.
Yeah, it's like you're still functioning, you're going to work, you're showing up for your family, you're answering texts, but algo se siente off. And if you're a first-gen Latina like us, chances are you were raised to push through it, to brush it off, and to keep moving.
We weren't taught to pause and ask, wait, am I okay? Am I just tired? Or am I just spirit tired? Am I holding the weight of too much?
So today we're slowing down and unpacking it, what it means to be in a slump, how we don't deal with it because of how we were raised, and how we're learning to actually take care of ourselves.
So let's talk about it, primas. Let's get into the slump.
So we chose this topic today because I have been telling you, Giselle, that I have been in a slump. And I get in these moods where I feel tired, I feel low energy. And I think we all go into these little slumps, and it's not always depression. Like, I can't name that I'm depressed because I don't feel depressed. I don't feel like every aspect of my life is really hard or sucks. It's just this, I don't know, almost this like low motivation, a chronic fatigue, social withdrawal, right? Not really wanting to make plans, overconsumption. I know I'm in a slump when I'm just on my phone scrolling for hours. I find myself doing that so much more and like disassociating. And then I get into my head and I'm like, I'm lazy. I'm losing it. I need to be productive, but I physically feel like I can't be productive. So I've been in a bit of a slump lately.
Yeah, I feel the same. I like when you're saying you can tell when you're on a slump because you just want to like scroll on your phone all the time. For me, it's like I'm binging TV. I normally don't watch that much TV. Like I'm busy doing things or I'll read or something. But like if I'm binging a show and then I don't want to like see anybody because I'd rather sit here and binge my show, then I'm definitely entering a slump.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I just binge watched Valeria, which, by the way, if nobody's seen Valeria, you have to. It's the Spanish from Spain take on Sex and the City. You were the one who told me about it. You're like, you have to watch it. And I'm like, oh my God.
So good. When I
First,
watched that, I was like, I guess I'm moving to Madrid. I don't know.
literally, I'm like, okay, we're moving there. We're going there. I want to be Carmen. I want Carmen's job. I want to be a publicist. I've never been a publicist in my life. No, but it was so good. I think it has a lot of the same issues Sex and the City had with like diversity. There's no diversity. Everybody's white and beautiful. So for anybody who's gonna watch it and maybe is expecting like a diverse show, it's not. But what I will say is the characters are super complex and they're really relatable. And yeah, and I binged it in a week and it has 4 seasons. So she's in a slump for
You
sure.
finished the whole thing?
I finished the whole thing. I was also obsessed because it was so good. Once I
Was so
started,
good.
it was hard not to. But I, with the slump point sometimes that we can ignore is like the body signs.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, like I know, okay, I can get brain fog. I'm snappy. I can be emotional,
Mm-hmm.
canceling plans, and then feeling like I have no friends, which you cancel plans. So of course you're gonna feel like you have no friends.
Yeah.
But it's also body signs. Like insomnia is a big one for me. I'll sleep a lot less or I'll stay up late toxically and then I'll wake up and feel really tired the whole next day.
Yeah. I get very fatigued as well, especially because I play a lot of tennis.
Mm.
And if I feel like I'm forcing myself to go to tennis, I do end up going, but I'm like so excited for tennis. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna play so good. But like if I'm in a slump, I'm like, oh, why did I sign up for this tennis class? But I guess I'll just go and then I'll know.
And then you go and you feel so much better
And
after.
then I'm glad I went for sure. I'm like, okay, I had fun.
That happens to me too, especially with yoga, because it has to happen in the morning or else it doesn't happen, or it's less likely to happen in the afternoon. And so if I don't wake up and go to my hot yoga, I won't go later. And then the hardest part is just getting there. And once I'm there
Mhm.
after the class, I'm high on all those endorphins. I'm feeling good.
It's
Um,
so funny because like when we were talking about like our favorite Peloton instructors, Ryan's like, I love the instructors that are like, go get her, you got this, da 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 da. And I'm like, really? Because I love the instructors that are like, I'm so happy you're here today.
Thank you for making it. The
Yeah, I'm
hardest
like, oh,
part of the
you're
class is
welcome.
over.
Yes, those are my favorite. I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. I'm here.
Oh my God, that is so funny. Um, how do you feel like, obviously, as a teenager, young adult now that we are, or that you are, how do you feel like it's gone over when you've tried to talk about being in a slump with your parents or your mom or like family members, or do you even go there?
Well, I feel like if I'm in a slum, well, I'm thinking about like my high school years. I was in color guard, so we trained like we were professional athletes
Mhm.
every day, and we are tired. Like on my days off, we would just like sleep in, or if I'm in a slump or something is going on, but my mom would just A, be like, you're vaga, or B, be like, tú eres pesada.
Yeah, there's no room for being tired. You're either lazy or you're just in a bad mood.
Yeah, and I was like just deemed the queen of being in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Insoportable.
I'm sorry I call you that sometimes. Does that bring up like
No, but I will say like that's my hangover mood is being insoportable for sure.
yeah,
I just don't even want to be here. For those who don't know what insoportable means, it's like I can't even I don't know. I want to say I can't even support you, but like that's the direct translation. It's like
I can't stand you. Like,
yeah, I can't deal with you today.
yeah, it's like when you're in such a mood that you can't even deal with yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm so insoportable, I can't even with myself today. Like,
Totally.
but we've talked about how therapy is taboo in, Latin countries or Hispanic families, especially ours. Um, and I love Marcelo Hernandez from SNL. He had this stand up bit where he said, when your mom was raised in communism, you could never have a bad day. And there is nothing more true or relatable that I have heard in my adult life, maybe, because it's
That
so
is so true. Did you tell your parents that you go to therapy?
No, no. I recently told my sister. My sister's on the cusp between Gen X and millennial. We were having a conversation, and she's like, "Yeah, my generation doesn't go to therapy." I think millennials are the first ones really like, breaking the mold with that, because she's like, "What am I going to talk to a stranger?" Like we had this whole
Mm,
conversation. Shout out to my sis who always listens to my crazy things that I share with her. I'm just like, why don't you go to therapy? And it helps you like talk to somebody and brainstorm what you're feeling that day.
mm,
Um, and she's like, wait, so you just like tell a stranger? The concept of telling a stranger feels so crazy, I think, to Hispanic families.
mm.
Um, and it feels so natural to me. I'm just like, why wouldn't I tell a stranger? That's like the best possible scenario, is to tell
Yeah.
someone who I'm never going to meet in person, who's never, because I do it virtual, who's never going to see me
Mm.
in real life. And she knows everything. Who cares? One person out there knows everything. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
I like told my mom she had the same reaction. She's like, I can't believe you're telling a stranger everything. But then she warmed up to the idea and was like, yeah, you should be in therapy. Your sister should be in therapy. Everybody should be in
Oh my
therapy.
God, that's amazing, actually.
And then I was like, you too, mom. And she's like, no, me, I'm too old. I'm like too far gone, basically.
That's what they always say. When they do agree, it's like, oh, well, there's no hope for me. Like I was
Yeah.
telling my mom, I was like, you guys should go to couples therapy, you and dad. She laughed in my face. She's like, us? Yeah, right. Like they've been together their whole life.
Yeah.
Um, which
I
every
know. I'm like, oh, I will say stuff like that to my mom too. Like, oh, you're, which by the way, this just popped into my mind. My mom thinks that this podcast, all we do is talk crap about our mothers.
she hasn't heard an episode.
She's like, Am I just like the main topic of your podcast?
I know when I was there, she's like, I already heard all the things you're saying about me. Like, shout out to our moms. They're
I'm
just,
sorry.
regardless of whether or not they should or could go to therapy, they're just like the best humans. I'm just obsessed with them.
Yeah, for real. Like, well, they like do stuff like when she does stuff with my dad. And then she'll be like, "Well, you can't talk to your husband like that." I'm like, "The way you talk to Bobby," and she's like, "It's different."
I know. They're like, I mean, also, what is your life? I mean, what are you going to talk about in therapy? Are you going to talk about 35 years worth of a relationship? Like, where do you even start with that? You know,
Yeah,
I get it why for them they feel like it's too long because they've been with their husbands their whole life.
yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
much. It's insane. Um, but I do remember like if I would ever like tell my mom like I was sad about something, she would be like, bueno, ponte a limpiar para que
Mm.
se te olvide. Ese cuarto está sucísimo. So like get up and clean your room because it's dirty and you'll forget that you're sad. And that is the most gaslighting thing you could tell a child.
Okay. And then I just feel like you're already in a slump, and then they're like adding more to your plate. There's nothing that makes me want to cry more.
Totally. And I feel like that's why I stress clean a lot too.
Mm.
I stress clean sometimes. And if I'm like in a mood or something, I just like, I'm going out the bathroom and I'm just like cleaning and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Oh, I was told to clean when my emotions were unhinged.
Yeah.
Um, or another thing, like, you know, I don't know, if I was like upset about something, it's like, well, in Cuba, dot,
Mm.
dot, dot. Anything that came after that was never going to feel better. I was never going to feel comforted by
Or like you would never survive being in Cuba. It's always I'm like, okay, well,
we're not in Cuba. We're here.
I wasn't born there, so
And it's your fault that I wasn't. So do you want to move there? Should we move there for a few years so I can get a sense of what
like
was
you're right.
happening?
I wouldn't.
But I think there was just, and also just like going back to the cleaning, it's like an overproductivity thing where I think rest as an adult has felt so hard for me. And I, you know, I think sometimes I like lay in bed for a long time in the morning, especially on the weekends. Or like yesterday, we got back from Florida and we took a 3 hour nap. And I woke up so anxious from that nap. And I was like, I came home and all I did was sleep and I lost the day and I didn't clean up. And I like paused and I was like, you need to relax because I slept a ton yesterday and today I feel so much better. So I feel better about the slump when I get sleep, but then I'm guilty when I do sleep and rest.
Hmm. It's like having to train yourself to be like, it's okay to like listen to your body and just take a nap
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
just be still. Like being still is like a whole problem.
tell me about it. I skip Shavasana sometimes.
That's crazy. A crime.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, termine. I'm done. I don't want to sit here.
I'm shook.
Not always, but when I feel like I'm just too like I don't even know how to describe it. When I'm too like wired in my head
Mhm.
and I'm like, I gotta do things, I gotta get things done, and like that over productivity or that anxiety takes over my head. I can't even give myself those 5 minutes of stillness because I'm like on to the next thing.
Mhm. Wow.
It's toxic.
You know it's bad when you're skipping Shavasana. Sometimes I'm like, I can't wait to get there. Like, let's just get there.
Oh my god.
When we did yoga, so me and Roxy did a yoga class when she was here. That lady, it was a slow flow, and I guess in my mind, I thought it would be more of like a restore class, but that slow flow was kicking my butt, and I was like, no more, no more flows.
That class actually, I like really leaned into Shavasana too hard. Whenever like we would like get into child's pose and then she'd go to the next thing, I'd sort of stay there for a minute. And it was early in the morning and we went to bed really late and I kept falling asleep.
No, there was a moment that you woke up from your whatever and you're like, what's going on? And I'm on one leg. I was like, we've been on this leg for an hour.
And then we leave class and I go to hug Giselle, like, I'm so glad we did this. And she's so sweaty. And I was like, why are you so sweaty? She's like, because you didn't do half of this class. I'm crying. I literally was not there for that. I needed that restorative too. I gave it to myself.
I was I was like, this is not what I thought I was signing up for on a Sunday morning.
No, and it was so warm in there. It was so nice for like a little like, yeah. Um, that is so funny. So you mentioned something in the beginning, Giselle, that I want to talk about again, where you talked about the spirit, where you talked about like, am my spirit tired? And I want to talk a little bit about that. What does that mean to you?
When I stop caring, I feel like is a big spirit tired.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel that way. Like when I stop connecting with myself and the things that I usually love or
Mm.
care about. And I think when my spirit feels tired, I feel really defeated and I go into this like I'm not good at anything and like what are my skill sets? What is my worth? I go into like a bit of like a spiral of like not seeing myself or not forgetting who the fuck I am. I think
Mm.
that's the way I can put it. It's like when I forget who the fuck I am, is like my spirit feels tired. And once she rests
Mm.
and get what she needs through journaling or yoga or just like internal monologue conversation affirmations, that's when I can lift her back up and get her feeling good again.
Yeah, I don't even know what I do to lift that spirit back up because it's a cycle of you're like burnt out with work, you're just putting your body through so much, and then you get in that slump and you just need that time to rest and recover so that you can go back to kicking butt at work and doing all the things. But it's a tiring cycle.
It is. It is. I've noticed when I'm deep in my self work, which for whatever reason, the season of fall, I'm just always
Mm.
so deep in my self work and what I want. And I think it's because I'm preparing for my birthday, which is a new year. And then I'm preparing for the new year itself, come January. But when I get so deep in that work and I love when I'm so focused and when I'm journaling and when I'm communicating with myself, when I'm doing ceremonies, when I'm doing tarot, when I'm in touch, right, with who I am and what I want out of my life and my manifestations. And then something happens where January, February, March, I stay disciplined to what I've set the intention to in the fall. But then from like April to August, I lose control because it's vacation, it's um travel. Like I've been traveling for 4 weeks. Before those 4 weeks, I had mono. So it was like I've been
Mm.
so out of that self work that I know when I journal, I'm going to feel better. It takes me a few days to feel better, but if I get it all out on paper, I know I feel better. When I limit my screen time, I know I feel better. When I take time to like manifest, whether it's like pulling a tarot to see what's out there for me, or I think about things that are not working and I reflect on where I am, I know I feel better. It's when I'm away from that work that I notice that I'll, go into like the drinking cycle that we talked about that like isn't good for me, or over consume, like spend money, just like I fall into toxic patterns, I guess.
At least that's good that you know what to do to make you feel better because I feel like that's also half the battle.
Yeah.
Being caught in a slump and then not knowing what to do to get out of it.
Yeah. It's taken a lot of work to get to that level. I would say like probably the decade of my 30s is where I've like turned it around and been like, okay, I know I have these cycles. When I get in these cycles, like in my 20s, I was always going out and that always helped me get my mind off things, always drinking. in my 30s, that got old. Like, that doesn't serve me anymore. I don't want to go to the club with somebody. I don't want to go to the club, period. I want to figure out, like, inside, what are the things that I need for myself. And so it's been a lot of work, and it's taken a lot of time to, like, figure that out. And I can't explain to anyone enough how important that is, to take the time to learn that for yourself. And if you're not somebody who is into therapy, like, that's fine. But my own therapy is like my journaling, is like talking to myself, figuring out what those things mean. And I'm not scared to go to an expert and go to a therapist. I have one, but I'm not religious with it the way I am with, like, my career coach, for example. I do think it's important to find your own rituals.
Yeah. For me, it was therapy, and I am religious about it, even when I'm thinking that I don't need to go or I don't feel like going, and I still do it. And I think that has helped me also realize that I'm someone who's like go, go, go all the time. I always need to be doing something and having a project and whatever. And then, like, when I get in my slumps, I'm just feeling guilty about laying down or being still. And that's when my therapist was like, it's okay to just be still for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's just like stillness, quiet.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I do. To be honest, it's been a while since I've been in a slump because I've been so stressed with my master's program. That's like all I've been thinking about. So maybe it'll hit once I graduate.
Yeah. You've been in a different world. A couple of things just to highlight from what we've said that I think are important, and that's like reparenting ourselves, learning emotional language, being okay with being in an emotional state, whether it's like manifesting in a physical way where you just feel really tired, low energy, low motivation. That's your body telling you something. Or if it's your spirit where you feel not good about yourself, or you feel like you wish you were in a different stage of life. Like, I think that happens sometimes too, where you'll, like, compare yourself to other people. And even though I love my life and I don't want someone else's life, I do look at other people's lives and I'm like, damn, they're already there. I'm not there. Normalizing that it's okay to have these feelings, and normalizing therapy or your rituals, identifying what your rituals of care are. If it's journaling or movement or prayer, if prayer helps you, meditation, um, not feeling guilty about canceling plans with somebody because you needed that time for yourself. I don't think I feel that guilt anymore. What happens is I spiral and I'm like, I don't have any friends, but I never feel guilty about canceling plans if I feel like I need that time for myself or for my family.
And I'll always appreciate if a friend of mine cancels on me because of that, because I'd rather you cancel on me and take that time for yourself than to show up and just not be like fully there
And not be present. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Another thing that has added to my slump and feels really hard is navigating the slump while the world burns, in a really dramatic sense of saying that. But it feels like we're living through this collective crisis right now. And I'm seeing it at work. I'm seeing it manifest in, my personal life with my friends. I'm seeing it manifest in people who used to post only happy things are also posting about the things that are happening in the world and in our country specifically. All, the civil unrest, all the anti-immigrant policies, genocide, climate collapse. Like, Latinas, I feel like we often feel responsible for showing up even when we're burnt out. And I think that feels really hard because I was raised to care about others, and now seeing what's happening in the Hispanic communities across the country and the way that Hispanic people are being treated is just really affecting me and really upsetting me.
Yeah, me too. It's just everywhere on my feed, and I resonate with that person who was always posting happy things, and now all I'm posting is reposting the things that are going on. Because how can you not? Like, how can you just sit there and watch it and just feel okay with yourself? That's crazy.
I have been finding myself taking time off of social media or the news and just turning it off, and feeling okay with that. and other times I just feel like I can't. And part of, I think our podcast and one thing that we want to be really intentional about is like we love talking about Latina first gen struggles. And I think one thing we promised ourselves when we started this was that we didn't want to be tone deaf to what is going on. And so that's why I think it's important for us to also talk about what's going on, especially in Los Angeles, because it's very scary. Because these things are so heavy and they're happening right now, if you're in a bit of like an emotionally unhinged state, it's so easy to spiral and lose yourself in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why also going back to the things that we do to work on our mental health or our slump when we're feeling in that, like finding your own rituals is so important, especially when we live in such a complicated time right now.
And it's also that feeling of helplessness. I feel so helpless. Me as an individual, like, what am I really gonna do? The best I can do is just bring awareness to what's going on and just keep sharing so that it's visible to people, to other people, that it may not be on their algorithm or whatever, but still feeling like super helpless. And then having to sit in that and be like, okay, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like finding my rituals and, taking breaks is very important. Doom scrolling,
Yeah.
like that can really mess with your mental health.
Totally, especially because platforms like Instagram are designed to get you riled up. So
Mm,
I feel like when I see something on my feed, I immediately like go to my Safari to Google the news and I find a couple of news sources that I can read through to say like, okay, what is AP News saying about this? What is NBC saying about this? And I think that's one piece also that's missing from people being informed about what's happening. People look at social media and they take it at face value and they're like,
mhm,
oh, this is news. And unless it's coming from an actual news source that you're following, that it might be an opinion. Make sure that you're
mhm,
going and you're looking at a few different news sources to compare the stories and see what people are saying. If you only consume right wing or left wing or these biased medias, you're always going to live in that
mhm,
extreme. And I think what's missing is what are the middle of the road sources that are just sharing facts versus, something like a Truth Social, which is Donald Trump's platform for where he writes his news, and a lot of people follow that and consume that, and that's all their news.
right. Because the algorithm will just continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that side.
Yeah,
There's
no,
no happy medium.
for sure, for sure. And it's so important to stay in the news and in the know. I had such a great conversation with my mom on this trip because my parents are um of the Hispanic population that voted for Trump, and there is a lot of Hispanics that voted for Trump. And so for me, we avoid the political conversations because it just nobody's changing each other's minds. But I did have this conversation with my mom where I was like, Mom, you know that ICE raided an elementary school graduation? Like, that is so sad. And it was really comforting to hear her say, like, I'm an immigrant and I feel devastated about what's happening here. And we were told that they were going to go after criminals. I told her, I said, I agree that there needs to be immigration reform. I don't think people can just come here. I understand all of that. And are these people that are being deported from their workplaces? They're going to work. Are they criminals?
Yeah,
Are
that's
the
crazy.
kids going to school criminals? Because if there's an ICE raid at a school, that's not just traumatizing to the children whose parents are being taken. That's traumatizing to the kids who are just watching these things happen and have no idea what
Mhm.
the hell is going on.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder what the medium is for both parties sort of coming together and saying like, hey, we're removing these people from their families in a very Hollywood way with these big tanks in
Hmm.
the middle of downtown LA. I never saw that in the news with any other president, and every single president has done deportations.
Mm. I just wonder, why are we going after the kids? The story of the 4-year-old that's in LA getting treatment, she has short bowel syndrome, which is basically no small intestine. So she has to have a backpack that digests her food for her. She had a humanitarian visa to come over here and get treatment. And now they're trying to deport her. And that's when I'm like, why are you going after a literal 4-year-old? That story broke my heart. I was literally crying at work in the nurse's station when I was listening to that.
I saw another case in Boston where this mother whose child she was still breastfeeding because it was a baby, they ripped the baby away from her and just took her away. That is inhumane. And
Mm,
going people who are going to their immigration appointments and they're following the process to get their citizenship, they're getting deported from their appointments.
yeah, that makes no sense. Like,
They're following the law, they're following the process, but it's I can't help but feel that it's just an attack on brown people. Like,
yeah, 100%.
es-
100%.
especially because the Afrikaners, the South African refugees, white South African refugees, were welcomed recently with open arms. Like,
Hmm.
do we really think that those people are in danger? If we're not letting people in, then why are we allowing these refugees to come in? Giselle and I have been really upset about what's happening in LA. So if you aren't up to date, basically ICE raids began June 6th in LA. There was peaceful protests and then there was non-peaceful protests as well. So then law enforcement responded with tear gas. The craziest part of all of this is that on June 7th, President Trump issued a presidential memorandum federalizing 2,000 members of the California National Guard under Title 10 to assist with the arrest, a move that does not require the governor's approval. Governor Newsom denounced the deployment as purposefully inflammatory, saying California authorities had things under control. So this is a rare instance where the federal government has federalized a state national guard without that state governor's consent. People are arguing that this risks undermining civil liberties and trust, while supporters contended that it's necessary to enforce federal law in the face of violent disruption. So I understand that, violent protests are never okay. The piece that kills me in this whole thing is that there was no action on those who raided our Capitol building on January 6th a few years ago, and those people are being pardoned by this administration. But then people who are defending brown and black people being deported then are getting the National Guard called on them.
As a daughter of immigrants, I do feel like, I do still feel really scared for our parents and for, um, people who don't look Caucasian and don't look white in our family, who, yes, they're citizens, but they're not really checking your paperwork or giving a crap about that. They're just taking you. So, I do feel scared about that.
Those people aren't necessarily being deported right away. They're being held in detention centers. And like, I think about myself, like, what if I was undocumented and I came here
Mm,
to give my family a better life and we were here and we were working and we were paying taxes, and then I get violently taken away to a jail,
mm,
basically,
mm.
and then I don't know when I'm going to be sent back to my country. Like, the whole process just feels really scary. And because there's no due process, there's no like knowing what's going to happen with a lot of
Yeah.
these people.
It's almost like there's no reason for them. I mean, there's no reason for any of this to be happening. Let's get that straight. But also, why are you putting them in these detention centers? If you haven't read The Nightingale, or you need to read The Nightingale
Oh
by
my God.
Kristen Hanna, because this is happening right before our eyes.
No, it is so insane, the similarities between that story and what's happening right now. So,
Hmm.
for those of you who haven't heard of The Nightingale, it's by Kristen Hanna. Be prepared to cry your eyes out. It's a very sad book. Trigger warning, all of her books destroy your spirit in one way or another for a while. But
Not a good book to read if you're in a slump. You will go deeper into that slump.
No, for real. Good trigger warning. um, but it takes place in Paris, and it talks about people who lived in Paris but were not Jewish under the Nazi regime. And it didn't happen from one day to the next. It took
Mm-hmm.
many years before it got to the point of where they were, which I think similarly we've watched The Handmaid's Tale, where that also didn't happen from one day to the next. There were these small policies that like bundled together to create then what was the world or the
In Gilead. But I think with The Handmaid's Tale, yes, like it's so scary. It's totally like for people that see it and know, they're like, yes, like this is like totally possible. But I think for some people, they think it's so far fetched because when Handmaid's Tale starts, it's already in Gilead and nobody saw the process of it becoming Gilead. They should know that.
nightingale.
The Nightingale does a great job of showing regular life, and then we're like the sister that lived in the country with Rachel, the best friend who was Jewish. That story right there, I feel like is parallel to so much that's going on right now with like people, like with friends who have different opinions and views and stuff. Oh my God, you guys need to read this book. You need to read this book.
Yeah. I think that's like a whole other topic of conversation, but how the differing of opinions also affects friendships, relationships, family dynamics. It's all so messy. But if you're feeling like you're in a slump and you're watching the news and you're watching all of these things, we were never meant to know this much about the world, too.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are able to see every single injustice, genocide that's happening across the globe. And it's a lot to take in. It's so important to take care of ourselves. And this episode was selfish for me because I feel like I'm coming out of my own slump. But it's important for you all to also find tools, find tips to ensure that you are taking care of yourself and that you're prioritizing yourself.
Slumps are not weaknesses, they're invitations to realign. You are not broken, you're processing. You don't owe the world a perfect, always productive version of yourself. Your softness is sacred, your limits are holy, and your rest is revolutionary.
As a closing affirmation for today, if you need one, I offer this one. I honor my body when it asks me to slow down. I honor my mind when it needs quiet. I honor my spirit when it asks for softness. I honor myself even in the slump. So thank you, Primas, for talking to us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.